Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's conversation. I am Enolia. I'm here with my co-host, Sara Jane. And we're so excited to be here.
We are. Looking forward to this.
And we are here with the beautiful Jenny Hahn, and she is our guest today. In today's conversation, we are going to talk about creativity, magic in the mistakes. And instead of me trying to introduce Jenny, why don't you just take a minute or two to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Enolia and Sara, for having me. I'm Jenny Hahn. I'm an artist and a workshop facilitator based here near Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm right in the center of the U.S. in my home studio, live with you today. I have been painting professionally for about 20 plus years now. I paint in acrylics, vibrant palette, bold expression, and am very inspired by themes of nature and the divine feminine, and just the inward journey. Just meditation very much informs my practice. And I weave mindfulness into the teachings that I do and the process art workshops that I lead with others. So I am so honored to be here with you both today. Thank you for having me on.
Welcome.
And thank you for that. Oh, go ahead, Sara Jane.
I just said welcome.
Yes. Thank you for that. We're just so thrilled to have you on here. And I love the topic that you selected, creativity, magic in the mistakes. You know, there is a perfectionist in all of us. And, you know, allow that free-flowing expression to really take place, and then to try to find what seems perfect to us. It's a balance, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. And, you know, you mentioned the perfectionist. I struggled with perfectionism all through my young adult and life for the most part. I won't say that I'm completely, beyond that, but that hook of the inner critic, and really based in the mind, that can really hinder our natural creative expression and flow, and just our spontaneity and intuitive presence in life, because of those messages we get early on, and trying to be a certain way, trying to not be too much, but to be enough, and, how to be in the world. And so, yeah, it's absolutely a balance. And it's, for creativity, it's like creativity is all about like seeing beyond our assumptions, seeing with that beginner's mind with clear eyes. And so it's like these two sides of, the world as it is, and then the world as it can be. And like, can we start to see beyond those limitations? And so that's where I feel like, I used to be so terrified of mistakes or doing things wrong. And now my practice has been to start to embrace the quote mistake. And actually, I'll be honest, I don't believe in mistakes anymore. I think that everything is, well, to quote Bob Ross, the TV painter, there's no mistakes, there's happy little accidents. And that can be a practice, that can be a form of a spiritual practice, really, is to be able to take whatever it is we have, and then to see what it wants to become before we jump in with that judgment of it being a mistake. I'll just share one more quick story. I'm really inspired by, the story of Miles Davis, the famous trumpeter, jazz great. And he was known for this too. Like, he literally embodied this throughout his whole life. And this is why he was able to change with the times and keep evolving all the way up till his death, really. And not just in music, but picking up visual arts later in life. And he is known for saying there's no wrong note. It's always corrected by what you play next. So we're literally in this like improvisation with life when we can get into that balance like you're talking about, Enolia.
Yes, beautiful. Sarah Jane.
Well, isn't there a thing out there that says, if you're not making a mistake, you're not trying anything new?
So true.
And that is so true. Give it a go. And I love this happy accident, because it is amazing. And as you said, you don't believe in mistakes. Neither do I. It's another stepping stone. It's guiding you to the next step, whatever that might be, in so many different areas of our life. And it is allowing the creativity. And for me, I suppose I spent so many years being very insecure, etc., that I was that people pleaser. So everything had to be about, everything I did for others had to be perfect. But whose notion is that of perfection? Because what you would think of as perfect, I might not, and vice versa. And I really do feel there's that about perfection is, do you know what? Allow things to be what they are. And if there is something slightly different about it, maybe that's there for a very good reason. And just allow it to be. So, Enolia.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. So I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I want to talk about it from a couple of different perspectives. So one, I'll just comment on myself, right? So we have this idea of perfection, and in order to, like you said, that people-pleasing piece, all right, in order to be accepted, in order to be looked upon as above the others, you have to attack or do something that's right, and then you can't be wrong. I mean, to be wrong is to come down a couple of notches of what you're striving for. And that's how society is set up, the system and the framework. When you're talking about corporate and they divide and conquer and to see who raises to the top, when you talk about entrepreneurship and you have to be above the rest, everything's always like putting you on a stage. And then everyone has to be beneath you. And then if you make a mistake, you're below that stage. But it's beautiful because the indigenous teachings that I have embraced and I've learned throughout my life, they take something that they might deem as perfect and put an imperfection in it. And put an imperfection in it, because that's reality, right? So this whole idea of, oh, I made a mistake or there's an imperfection, if it doesn't have an imperfection in it, then it's not ready to be accepted into the world, So I love that idea of imperfection needs to be placed specifically in it. And it might only be known to you, right? But there is no such thing as perfection. And so this just made things reality to me, And instead of being on that stage, I'm in a circle. No one's above me. No one's below me. No one's in front of me. No one's behind me. I just sit in circle, which means that everything that is around me is of value. Everywhere I participate is of value. Everything I have to say and hear is of value. And it doesn't have to be value above something or below something. Right. So that gives you permission, in my mind, to be able to make a mistake. That a mistake is okay. And it's so funny because I'm here and I'm teaching drum making and ceremony. And one of the things in drum making and in those teachings is that if somebody's center is a little off to the right or off to the left, that's really who they are. They're off center. They're a little off center. If they make it and it's too tight and they pull too hard and they stretch it too hard, well, they need to taper that back. That's just part of the natural pieces of the personality. But your personality actually comes out in the making, right? And then because it's a drum and external to you, you have to accept that. You have to accept the fact you're a little off center. You're a little aggressive. You pull too tight, or you're a little weak. You don't pull tight enough, and you can't force a change. The product, the end product, is a part of and an extension of you, and I love that. And I guess the question in this would be, how do we get people to not only acknowledge and face their imperfections in a perfectionist world, you know, and then be comfortable with it?
Yeah. What a great question. And I love that you mentioned that, Enolia, about indigenous cultures and the intentional, deliberate imperfection. You made me think of the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi.
Okay.
Simplicity, it's basically translate to simplicity in and seeing the beauty in the imperfection. And it's actually part of an art form where, in, like, say, in clay pots, you intentionally embrace the off-centerness, like you're saying with the drum. You know, you have the roughness of the piece. There's a particular practice, I think it's called kintsugi or something, I may not be saying it right, but where if a piece is broken, it's literally mended with like gold dusted lacquer. And so I think, in answer to your question, I mean, that to me is a beautiful symbolic way of not just accepting the imperfections, but literally like celebrating them. Like, this is the uniqueness of this form or of this being. And so, like, if we can apply that to ourselves, it's like, how can I celebrate my seeming imperfections? And again, there's, I mean, that's a label, but like, you could see it as like our uniqueness is, you know, what makes me very different from others. And like, how can I celebrate that in our, at least in the US here, in our public schools? You know, it's like, you know, we tend to learn more conformity, but it's like, what if our uniquenesses are our greatest strengths? I mean, that's where creativity comes in, right? To identify what those uniquenesses are, and then like to actually work toward nurturing them, celebrating them. I think some of the Montessori schools do more of this, and other types as well. But yeah, to really like bring the gold, you know, to those differences. And that is not easy to do in our culture, like you said, that celebrates, well, again, the notion of perfection, which is a myth. So I think, yeah, being able to bring the gold to those parts of ourselves.
Beautiful. Sara Jane.
Well, it's take the word imperfect. I'm perfect. And I am a great believer we are born perfect for the life we have chosen this time round. Mm-hmm. It is those things that happen to us, those things that we witness, that we experience, that change that perfect being. That perfect being still resides in every single one of us. Those gifts we brought here to share are still inside us. It's about unlearning everything we've learnt so that we can truly find ourselves. And it's being creative with that and not being afraid to be something different, because we are all different. We're unique. And it is really important for us to realize that maybe that thing that's caused that crack is what is actually allowing, they say this, you see this so often, the cracks are where the light get in. Mm-hmm. The cracks are where the universe can then, your soul can start speaking to you. And you can start connecting with yourself. Mm-hmm. And self is about taking a step inwards, not about taking a step outwards. What is each and everybody ready for? Some are going to be further along the path than others. But it's know from those who have already started their journey that it's the stepping back into yourself. It's allowing the cracks to let the light in so that you can find the real you. And there are no mistakes. You are not, cannot, will never be a mistake. Each and every one of us is essential for the smooth running of life.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, a couple of things that would be different for me is I would throw out the word perfect. You know, the human beings come up with words to describe scenarios, and I don't always subscribe to them. So I don't really subscribe to the word perfect more than I am an authentic being, and that what I step into is just what I am. You know, whatever that looks like. It's the outside circumstances that shape us, distort us, impose dysfunction within us because we're responding and we've never encountered this before. And so the way that we respond may be, you know, along the lines of navigating through the situation. And sometimes we get caught up in the story and we get impacted the story. So much so it impacts us physically, it impacts us, you know, mentally, it impacts us spiritually, you know. And when I think about those circumstances, the key is, how do I navigate through them? How deep do the cracks actually go and how they're created? And how do I get over them? And I think that that's where I want to guide this conversation a little bit. What were some of those outside circumstances that, you know, took your authentic self or perfect self? You know, I won't say that. I don't like the word perfection, but I'll throw it out there. What were some of those outside circumstances that made you realize that your creativity was everything, that navigating through, that it was okay to not be this quote unquote perfect being, or quote unquote being without any imperfections or any mistakes that took place? But yet we know that all of the circumstances that we deal with day to day do nothing but imbue those things. You know, try to trip you up, try to, you know, make you stumble, try to, you know, curve your creativity. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. I was an art student. I went to art school to study illustration, and I was training to kind of fit into these, what I thought was the norms of the field and of that particular approach to, you know, commercial art. But I had such a disconnection from my own creativity, and being that people pleaser, to borrow, Sarah's word, I was completely like disembodied, if you will. Like I was like living out of my head, trying to be something that I thought I was supposed to be. And I think that life has a way of bringing us back. For some, it can be a little knock. For some, it can be a huge whack on the head, you know. And for me, it was really the eating disorder and outpicturing of my my self-criticisms and doubt and all of that was kind of the big wake-up call. And it was art. It was making art for me that was really the turning point. Because at that point, I was doing assignments, I was getting straight A's, you know, all this. But what was I doing for me, like for my soul? And that's when I discovered this group that was called Paint or Die. And they call it process art, using painting just for the sake of self-discovery and soul expression, and not for a finished product. And that was really what redefined my relationship to my own creativity, and what brought me home, because there's self-inquiry and there's mindfulness in that. There's embodied awareness in showing up to a blank page or a blank canvas or whatever it is, without the expectations, without fear of mistakes, without other people's, input on how it should be. And so that's a beautiful way to practice that, because that was really foreign to me at the time. Like to really see like what's actually going on in me, like what feelings am I not feeling, and to get curious about it. And yeah, it's freaking scary, like jumping into the unknown. But there's so much freedom and so much magic there. And there truly are no mistakes. Like it is like a child drawing an animal, let's say a bear or something, like it looks how the child invents how it looks, it is a unique expression, and it may not fit any outer definitions at all. But that's how creativity happens. So yeah, any practices that really invite us into that intuitive being in the moment, like being embodied, I feel like is on the right path.
I get that you don't like the word perfection. I do. But I see there is amazing perfection in imperfections. I really do, because we, as I said, we're unique. Our experiences form us. They support us. They help us to grow. And yes, some of those experiences can be very negative experiences. But something is only negative if you perceive it as being negative. My wake-up call, the broken jaw, 6 months of pain and sleepless nights, I wouldn't change it for anything, because of the beautiful gift that it gave me of helping me to reconnect to me, of helping me to learn to say no more. So for me, there is definitely perfection in what people would refer to as imperfection. And it's subjective, because what really resonates with one person won't resonate with another. I've seen some amazing artwork. It was beautifully done, but the topic was one I wouldn't go anywhere near, because it actually offended my sensibilities. But it didn't stop me from appreciating the talent that went into that particular piece of artwork, which was at an antiques event. So it was an old piece of artwork, and something very acceptable at that time wouldn't be acceptable to me. But so it's what is right for you. That is, life is about you. Life is about listening to the heart, which is your connection to your soul. Do you like drawing? Do you like painting? Do you like writing? Do you prefer music? What is your creative, for want of a better way of putting it, bent? Which way? What out there that is creative? Do you just like flower arranging, sewing, knitting, whatever it is, and creating something new and different, not necessarily even from a pattern? Tap into those things that help you to relax, to unwind, feel fulfilled. And there may be things that people love coloring. These days, it's not just kids that color in books, it's adults that color in books. Go with what speaks to you. What haven't you tried? What would you like to try? And allow that energy to flow through you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so let's continue on with the role of creativity. You know, a lot of people will become aware and know that there's more than what meets the eye for how they're living, how they're being, how they're perceived. And those of us who have really just gone knee deep into our spirituality, the first thing that you'll learn is that creativity is everything. Within your meditation, within your thought process, because it's like, how do you get to play in the ethers? Well, you play with your creativity. So how has creativity played a role in your life? As simple as that.
Oh, wow. That's a big question. Well, I want to share an example because I actually shared this story with Sarah the other day, but because there's some of these key moments, you know, where we can be creative beings, that we can be working on creative projects, but then there's like moments where it's like a turning point moment, you know? And I was telling the other day about when I first got out of art school and I was doing more like plein air painting, like on site, outdoors places, carrying my easel and all my supplies. And I was set up at this beautiful location nearby, Unity Village, has beautiful Mediterranean style architecture. And I was set up to paint this building. And I had my horizontal canvas there and the sun was behind me. And I was kind of sketching it out, and it was casting this perfect silhouette of my body. Like this form was like on top of the building. And it was like, I kept going, but I kept finding I was more interested in this silhouette than I was in painting, you know, this building. So I ended up turning the canvas vertically, drawing the outline of myself, you know, and then it basically was like the birth of what a lot of my paintings have become. And you know, we're on video, so I did bring like some examples because I want to show that painting. The buildings ended up going away completely, but it has a word on it because it's part of one of my oracle decks. But this image, and what showed up was this figure inside of it. And a lot of my pieces now are, you know, show kind of that inner energy of like what's going on within, like I said earlier, like the inward journey, kind of inner landscape. And so that was really turning point because my mind was struggling at first. My mind was struggling with, you know, this building isn't looking right and I can't stay focused and, you know, and in the past, my energy would have been more of a pushing, like, okay, I know how to do this. I'm going to do this. But when we can stay open to those moments of, it's really a form of following our curiosity and staying open to new possibilities. Some of those big breakthroughs can happen in those gaps where we're no longer controlling. There's actually one more story I want to share. My dear friend Mary Maud, she's a ceramic artist here in Kansas City, and she's been my studio assistant over the years, off and on. I actually brought one of her pieces with me too, which I'll show in a second. But she was doing a commission once. She did hand-built sculptures out of clay. And she was working on a commission this one time, and it was, she had that tension, forcing it. It's not looking right. It's not looking right. And she was getting more and more frustrated, more and more tension building up in her body. She had her carving tools there in her hands, and suddenly something just like flipped, and she just like took the carving tools, and she describes it as she just stabbed the piece to death. and left the room and was just completely just, complete frustration, complete giving up what her mind was holding on to. She comes back into the studio later and she's kind of in awe of seeing these beautiful textural patterns all over the piece, almost like waves of water, very organic. That was the turning point moment for her. And she said she never did let go of that piece because that was like the seed that birthed the entire style of her work, her uniqueness, her soul. And I will show you since we got the video, but like, here's an example of a toe frog I have of hers. But you can see the influence of, hopefully you can see some of the texture. And then the wabi-sabi of it, the holes, the organic forms. None of that would have come to her had she not exhausted that mental grip, that control. So I feel like that's really what creativity is. We can paint, we can write, we can create music, but it's especially in those moments where a part of us lets go to something beyond our current knowing. And that's really when the magic comes in, of just that new way of seeing and new way of approaching life.
Yeah, for me, it was very much, I suppose, because of the poetry that I've found, and it's not rhyming poetry, and I just have to sit with it and just let it flow. It's a pen and paper job. It's not sit at a computer and see what comes. And I suppose that when that started, I already knew that I was channeling from many, many mythical beings. That had come as a shock to me as well. It's things happen. You discover these gifts that you've been brought to bring, and slowly things move forward. And it's trusting that. And it's been a while since I sat with the poetry, but maybe I should do more of that, because it can be relaxing, it can be really beautiful. So what is the creativity? Now, okay, I feel it is channeled, but is that just not the creativity you're allowing from the soul? Was with the sun and your outline, your shadow, with your friend and the stabbing of the piece, was that just not the soul saying, right, here you go, let's open up your creativity? And there are so many different things, so many different aspects to creativity. Are you a brilliant cook? Do you come up with amazing dishes? Don't ever think there is no creativity in your life. Just open up to what that creativity might be. Because how many things that are amazing come from that mistake? Because it's just opened up something more. It was not a mistake that you went and stood where you stood that day, with the canvas, with the sun behind you. That's what they call synchronicity, not coincidence. Her frustration was that opening up to, I've had enough. Yes, I've had enough of not being true to me. It's great that she was able to do that in a very safe environment with clay. But that goes for all of us. Just allow out, and you could be multi-creative or just one area you're creative in. But there are no mistakes. Trust the amazing creativity that's within each and every one of us.
Beautiful. And I'm sitting here thinking in terms of creativity in my life. And I think, as Sara Jane pointed out, that we all come into the world, and because we haven't encountered the systems and the outer impacts of the world, we come with full creativity. We come with everything is the world, and there's no reason why I can't dream a beautiful dream, make it real, make it reality, draw it, feel it, taste it, touch it, sculpt it, whatever the case may be. And then we go into school, and then we learn conformity. And I think that school is where it took away my creativity, because I was so busy trying to fit in, conform, um, uh, wanting to be liked, and wanting, making new friends, and dealing with so many outside structural procedures that tell me that this is the way I have to do it. This is the way it has to be. And I think those that rebel against that to a degree end up being the beautiful artists that they are, or the artist scientists. And I call it artist scientists because those are the ones who are the creators and inventors and whatnot. They refuse to conform. They refuse to allow the limited belief systems to guide how they choose to see the world. And then I think about my walk in spirituality. And one of the things that my mom used to say, she used to say, there's no such thing as no, but there can be a such thing as not that way. So if you have a goal that you're trying to reach and you have a block that's in the middle of it, well, then go over it, go under it, go around it, go to the side of it. And that statement right there, to be able to go around it, to the side of it, or anything, is the creativity of accomplishing what you want to accomplish, regardless of what blocks are there. So be creative in your approach, be creative in the way that you see it to get to the goal, to get to the other side. And then I think about my spiritual path and my spiritual walk and the multidimensional creativity you have to have, because when you're guiding somebody on a meditation, oh yeah, we walk here and you're there. No, you have to be creative. You have to talk or see that multidimensional timelessness that you're in, and be creative in understanding that that angel that you see, that guide that you see, and that multidimensional being that you're feeling or encountering or hearing. How do you describe that? Well, this vision or this creative way of describing that so that the person can be there with you. All of those things lend towards the fact that our creativity is everything. If we don't have our creativity, we're not living, to me, and that it plays such an important role because it makes the difference of life being exciting and new and wanting to live and wanting to navigate, even though it's the unknown and even though it makes us nervous, versus sitting in that understood, judged, systematic way of doing something. It's like sitting there and doing a keyboard entry, the repetitive task over and over and over and over and over again. And you just get bored with it. So to me, that creativity is everything. It is the breath that I take, the shallow breath versus the deep breath and the impact that it has. And understanding that each breath that I take can have such a different impact in every approach by which I take it, ocean breath, deep breath, shallow breath, so it's everything. And, I guess I would look at all of this and I would say, what is it that I want my audience to know about creativity, about the mistakes, if I were to surmise it all together? And for me, it's that the creativity can be in the mistake, and what you perceive as that mistake is really the joy that you're bringing and the beauty that you're bringing to this world, the contribution that you're bringing to the world. So make many mistakes, please, because it's that mistake, that out of the box, that out of the framework, that out of the boundary, out of the limited thinking, that we need to stumble over so that we grow, so that we can see things from a new perspective, so that we can be a new perspective, that we create it, invent it. And so mistakes are absolutely essential. They're absolutely essential. Otherwise, we'd be bored with life and we'd be living the same thing over and over and over again. You know, I don't know. I'm ranting now, so I'll hand it over to you. Either one of you, whichever one wants to go. I'm just like,
preach it. Yes. I love what you're pointing to here, Enolia, because I think what I think of is just play. Play is creativity. Play is making mistakes. And it's not mistakes. Like before, when children are young enough, it's not identified as a mistake. And I think it was Einstein who said that play is the highest form of research. So again, that art and science, so artists, scientists, it's like we have to be able to play. And so many of us just don't even remember how to play. But that is that is the universe is playing. There's the term, I think it's Leela, is divine play. That could be the only thing that we're here to do, really. If there's a doing besides our beingness, is most animals are known to play, are studied. There's so many. I could just, there's so many forms of play. And yet, why is it that we human adults have lost our connection to that? And I think you're right. That is essential. That is vitality. That is the life force energy moving through us and expressing through us. And that's, I imagine that's why we have so much dis-ease and dissatisfaction in life. Why life can be so dull and repetitive is because we're not connecting to that play, that attitude and approach of play, even in our day-to-day lives, even in the the path that we take to get somewhere in our day, the clothing we put on our bodies, the way we interact with others. I think you can just see it in people who have that connection to their playful spirit, even regardless of their physical age. You can see that sparkle in their eyes and that lightness and levity of just like, we don't need to have the answers. We don't need to have life figured out. We can just approach it with play and see what happens and see where our curiosity leads us. And to me, that is how creativity plays out in our lives. And that's how we find like our passions and what we're called to, is through that experimentation and through that play. And we don't have to have it all figured out. I thought we had to have it all figured out by the time we were like 18 years old or whatever. No, it can change course. It can move around. We can try this, try that. And that, I think that is the purpose of life, is to reconnect with that spirit of play and creativity.
I like to use the word experience. Let yourself experience loads of different things, stuff that can be free, stuff that can be expensive. And I've done both but I spent the first 40 years of my life not experiencing anything, so afraid. And sort of when the opportunity, and this was the first thing that I really did other than walk out of a marriage, was sort of, I got the chance to abseil off a local water tower. And it was just like, go for it. Mm-hmm. My mother's reaction. And of course, that was exactly what would have stopped me in the past. Oh, but you can't do that. It's dangerous. Do you know what? I'm doing it. And I have allowed myself. Yes, I've gone for things as simple as fancied being able to throw a pot and actually make a little bit of pottery, get that experience. Sort of do a zip wire. I've done one where I had to step off. Oh boy, the stepping off was the problem. The rest of it wasn't. The second one I did, which was lovely and long, but they had you in a harness. They clicked a button and you went. There was no having to step off, and it makes a huge difference. But I'm not somebody who's particularly got a fear of heights. You know, I've flown a helicopter. You know, I've walked with wolves. I've done so many different things and that really enhances the playfulness, the creativity, because you let yourself experience. I took myself to Egypt, to a place near Dolphin House, with the hope of being able to swim with dolphins. I did get to see them on the very last day, because I said to the universe, excuse me, you brought me here. Come on. I've kept my part of the bargain. You keep yours. And we did get to see the dolphins on the last day. Seeing the dolphins in nature. What do dolphins love to do? They love to play.
Mm-hmm.
Have the experiences. Open your mind. All those experiences that you have can just enhance the life that you live. And that to me is something I had to realize, was that, you know what, I have experienced some amazing things. I really have. And when I sit and think about all the things that I've done, I am so proud of myself for stepping outside that comfort zone of fearing what other people thought, to doing it regardless.
Yeah, beautiful.
I love what you said. It's so true. And I'm going to continue on that note, because there was also something that Jenny said too that I wanted to go back to, which was the fact that you were worried about what people thought of your work until you went into a group that taught you how to draw for yourself and for your soul. So really, that's what all of us grow up with. We're judged and people want to give us their take on it, or the system says it can't be that way and we have to conform, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know? And you had a group that taught you to jump out of that box, that boundary. For me, I really had to fight through it in certain respects. And I say that, which is that, you know, all my life I adapted the criticism until I finally got to a stage and an age where I just basically said, I don't buy that anymore. Like, I remember my sister went to Juilliard, so, you know, she had perfect ear pitch. And I remember singing background for her, and she was like, oh, Enolia, please, you know, don't sing, you know. And it wasn't until like my late 40s that I started like seriously singing, leading singing. I sing in ceremony, I sing, and I love my voice. But like for the first 40 years of my life, I heard my sister saying, oh, Enolia, please don't sing. I had that guidance counselor who told me, you know, your writing is remedial. You should go back to remedial writing before, you know, take that class before you attend college, you know. So I always thought I couldn't write. And my master's degree, I got straight A's. I had to write a paper every day. You know, I wrote my first book. My book is published. You read my book, yes. You know, and how dare he tell me that I can't, you know, do something, like, even if I had to do it and then have it corrected and then it go forward, you know, the system is set up to judge you and to suppress so much. And the system doesn't realize how impactful it is, or the people who occupy the framework of the system. You know, what other challenges, or what can we share with our studio audience in terms of overcoming the fear or the blocks that other people put in place that may not necessarily be true?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. First of all, I want to say that if you have that experience, like, you are not alone. Like, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's no shame in that. So many individuals who come to my workshops now, the process art workshops, so many have had those experiences of their kindergarten or first grade teacher telling them, you should go in a different class other than art, or you really shouldn't try to paint, or that's wrong. My own partner was told back in elementary school that he shouldn't say the same thing, like just keep your mouth closed, during the choir. And today he has the most amazing singing voice, so many of us have to overcome those messages that are false. So just first of all, that if you have had that experience and you've been shut down or shamed in the past, that you are not alone, that this is so common to have happen. And I think that for me anyway, what really helped, and I think helps a lot of people to kind of dissociate from those voices, is to bring meditation or mindfulness practice to our lives. Because I know for me, before I was aware that those were just the voices, the programming, it was like my voice, my thoughts coming through the thoughts were coming through in my voice, if that makes any sense. And almost like from behind me, like directing me. And as I was able to start bringing some more mindfulness and awareness and questioning those messages, it eventually became clear, oh, okay, that one I picked up from culture and from magazines and media. And this one, oh, I picked that up from my parents. And this one, oh, that's okay, those are teachers talking, and so to kind of tease out, like, who is the voice, who is, usually if there's a critical tone to it, it's not our voice. The voice of intuition, for me anyway, comes through in a much subtler way, almost in a whisper, in a knowing, and so I think just bringing ways to really look at and really start questioning those voices, because if the voices have an air of negativity, it probably is not ours to begin with.
100% agree with that.
Yes. I love it. Yes.
100%
Exactly
agree with that. For me, it was that enlightening moment. Why am I worrying about what other people think about me when they're probably not? They've got so much going on in their own lives. They're not thinking about me. Yes, the voices from the past, perfect, absolutely perfect. But your voice for today, why are you worrying about what other people think? And as I've said it here before, who the heck do I think I am that other people are thinking about me all the time? Because they're not. If I've touched a little bit of consciousness in somebody and it supported them, great. That's what I'm here to do. That's what this is why we do what we do. But people aren't going to remember. They won't necessarily remember me or where they heard those words or that thought or whatever. But if it has supported somebody, that is fine by me. But you know what? I get it. People are not spending all their time thinking about me. Because you know what? I'm not spending all my time thinking about how many people have I met in this world, thanks to the internet, let alone the people I've met in person. We haven't got time to think about everybody. And stay out of, and for your own sanity, stay out of judgment of others. We don't know what's going on in other people's lives. We don't know the struggles they're going through. So for your own peace of mind, let go of worrying about what other people think, because they're not. And don't judge others, because we have no idea. We're not living in their shoes. And it brings so much peace to your own life that you can start to truly live it.
I love that. Thank you, Sara Jane. And I'm sitting here thinking what I would really say to that. And for me, I think about a couple of just those moments, you know, where like, what if Picasso had listened to his teacher and the teacher said, well, that's not the way that you draw an elephant. I mean, it has to go this way. Where's the context by which you're drawing that elephant, you know? I think that we have to listen to our heart. When we ignore our heart and our soul's calling, what ends up happening is that, excuse me, it circles back. The calling doesn't go away. So what happens is that you go, oh, I can't do that. You know, so-and-so said it's not going to work. It doesn't look good, blah, 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 blah. But yet there's a gnawing in your heart and your soul to do it again, present it to someone else. You know, I think we have to really step back. And before we're running around asking anyone's judgment, first of all, we shouldn't be asking anyone's judgment. That's the first one. But if you're going to ask anyone's judgment, please, you know, make sure that there's not an agenda behind it. The second thing is that, you know, it's just like your story. If someone doesn't subscribe to your story, that's okay, because somebody else will. You know, the first person you go to doesn't mean that, you know, it's not accepted. How many famous writers will sit there and tell you that their works were rejected 7, 8, 9, 10 times from different publishing companies or different art studios or whatever the case may be, because that particular person didn't see their vision. But when the right person saw their vision, oh my gosh, there it is, worldwide, you know, international distribution. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. And not only do you have to believe in yourself, you have to be able to take rejection, because there's no such thing as no. It just means there's a such thing as not that way. That's not the direction you're supposed to go. Yeah. So if you can subscribe to believing in yourself, knowing that if in your heart and your soul, this is what is supposed to be produced, this is what's supposed to be gifted in contribution to the world, and you truly believe that, then you keep at it until it happens. And then, you know, God forbid, some of us even die, and then it's accepted what? Right after our death. Mm-hmm. If you believe it, then leave it for the world, and don't even turn back. Don't even look back. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say to those of us who are out here in terms of our creativity, whether we call it our mistakes, whether we call it our masterpieces, doesn't matter. If you believe in yourself and you know that that's your contribution to the world, by God, contribute. And so, knowing that we're coming up on time, I'm going to ask, what is it that you would love to leave with our studio audience as just your last words to just really take home?
I just want to say that for all watching and listening, that you are a creative being. You are worthy of expression, and the world needs your uniqueness. Now more than ever, really, the world needs your uniqueness. So I guess to quote Nike, just do it. Just dip your toes in, just whatever it is that your heart is calling you, just give it a try and see what happens. It's all just play.
Just trust and believe in yourself. Your heart doesn't lie to you. Just trust and believe in yourself.
Beautiful. And before we turn it over to you, Sara Jane, because Sara Jane will be wrapping us up, Jenny, you do beautiful programs. You have a beautiful divine feminine card deck. Please tell people how they can reach you, what are some of the things that you offer, and yes, just all of that.
Thank you. My website is jennyhahnart.com, JennyHahnart.com. And I offer original paintings, G-clay prints of all of my pieces. I have, as you know, I have the 2 Oracle card decks that just came out these last 2 years. And I do lead process art workshops, occasionally online, also in person, and have some online stuff coming up. So if you want to follow some of what's coming up, then just, look for me. I'm on all the social media places. And again, just Jenny Hahn Arts. You can find me anywhere. And thank you so much.
Before you go on that, I really want to highlight her oracle card decks, because yes, you have the divine feminine, but there's I don't think I know anyone who has the shadow card deck. Can you talk about that a little bit too, because I think it's so important.
Yes. The shadow card deck actually came first, and I didn't expect for it to come through. It's one of those things where I had an idea in mind, and it's like the universe, wanted this to happen first. So that deck actually uses a lot of my very personal process paintings that I was talking about, that I've done over the last 20 years for my own healing journey, and working through the perfectionism and looking at all my repressed emotions and my shadow, and same with the author, my friend Jessica Ricchetti, who authored the guidebook. And so it's a very practical and functional tool, as well as really a portal into working with your own shadow and supporting that. And surprisingly, we actually have a lot of therapists and chaplains and different people who serve others who are working with that deck, which is, I think incredible, very humbling to me. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. Sara Jane, it's yours.
Jenny, thank you so much for joining us. And I've put your website up into the chat. And if you're watching the video, the recording on YouTube, I will make sure that it's under there as well. Please do check Jenny out. Also information for Enolia and myself. Do check us out if you wish to. That's why we do these, so that we're here to support. We are here to support you. 2 weeks time, so the 28th of September, our next program is Creating a New Earth, a New Life, and our guest is Sara Jane. I hope you will join us for that. In the meantime, folks, take care, be safe, stay well. Love, peace, and light to you all. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.
Bye.